Oh. Okay, I think we're going to start now that I'm set up. Let me open this out a little bit. Get a little more legible. Okay. So, Katie asks, how's my dad? My dad is Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. My sister is here. She came in for a week to visit, which is something that she's never done before, meaning just to come in to see them because, it's been a little bit difficult here, and also, we've come to the point where I guess this is something that happens, but it's the first time that it's, been acknowledged that if she wants to see him, she has to come to us, and not the other way around. He's not traveling anymore. So it's been a year since he was there for my niece's wedding, and more than a year. So she came in, Baruch Hashem, gives him a lot of joy. Let's see. Okay, so we are continuing. We ended off last time with Mari de Choshbena. I think that's where we ended last time. We spoke about the concept of, which is not a Hasidic concept, it's not a Breslov concept, it's a Torah concept, of Kishiyesh din lemata ein din lemala, when a person engages in the act of self-judgment and taking accounting of him or herself, so that alleviates heavenly judgment. Hey Kim, good to see you. Do you prefer Kim or Rachel? Which one? Because I see that you're listed here as Rachel Rosenberg. Either. Okay, so everybody's got their preferred name, I think. Let's see. So we are now moving on to the fifth subsection, and that is Chatzot. I think hopefully we'll be able to cover, make the transition from the night to the waking. That's the idea of Chatzot to as we head towards the morning. So we have Chatzot. Now, Chatzot as the practice. Chatzot, thank you. I'm also very happy to be learning with you. It's always great to be able to stay b'kesher. It's amazing the technology makes it available to us. I only wish I could see everybody and interact, like you getting to see me. I want to see you, but okay, that will come too, Bezrat Hashem. But for now, we'll take it as it comes and as we can. And at least I can see if you have questions or comments or statements or anything, and it's just nice to see your names and to know that you're there. Let's see. So we have Chatzot. Now, Chatzot, I'm gonna explain this as if you have no familiarity whatsoever with the whole idea of Chatzot. And some of you might be very familiar, and some of you might not know anything about it. So I'm just going to start from the very beginning. What about learning via WhatsApp? Katie asks. Good question. I'm not sure that it can. Yes, Kim, what do you want to say? You always heard the Breslov of Chatzos. Yes, Sfardim and Breslovers and Sfardim. Yeah, from when you see that the order of the day includes Chatzot as a regular practice, but we're going to learn the lesson that it's based on. One of the beautiful things about learning the Seder Yom, it's so short, it's very concise, but Rabbi Yitzchok Breiter, Hashem Yikom Demo, he's really assuming that he's speaking to the Breslover Chassid, who just kind of needs a reminder of what needs to be done. And when I first got married, my husband had a little booklet. Actually, he used to use this for quite a lot. It was a little booklet, like a little luach, that had for every day it had a checklist of every one of these things. It didn't say anything about them. It was just like 20 some odd things. And when you go to sleep, before going to sleep or at some point during the day, just check off. Yes, this I did today. Yes, this. Very, very the Seder Hayom, I think. I don't know if everybody does have an English copy of it, A Day in the Life of a Breslover Chassid. I think that did I put it up? Or did I give you the link for it? Breslov Research Institute did a translation of it. Okay, so Google A Day in the Life of a Breslover Chassid, or I have to see where it's hiding on BRI's website, because they for sure had a copy, and aside from having a hard copy, it's a very very simple little small pamphlet. You can see it's only 2 pages long of tight text. However, there are just dozens of lessons from Rebbe Nachman that are incorporated into the formulation of this Seder Hayom, of this daily practice. And so what we're doing is we're kind of deconstructing it, meaning Rabbi Yitzchok Breiter doesn't tell us what the lesson is, but Baruch Hashem, I have enough familiarity to at least pull here and there some sources. You can look at it inside and see what the original context is. Now, let's talk about Chatzot. So Chatzot, many people only understand or are familiar with the concept of Chatzot as it refers to midday, like Chatzot Hayom. So Chatzot Hayom is sort of, especially for Hasidim, it's sort of like that's your last chance to pray your morning prayers if you haven't prayed them. If you haven't prayed Shemona Esrei, like according to some opinions, you could go until Chatzot, and I'm not going to talk about even further outlier opinions of praying morning prayers after Chatzot. I'm not going to go there, but Chatzot Hayom is midday, right? And we know that Erev Shabbos, there's this kind of transition between Chatzot Hayom before midday, after midday, in terms of preparation for Shabbos and when it's preferable to be finished by. That requires a lot of work and a lot of effort to be able to say there's a whole mini subculture of religious women who give each other a lot of encouragement to be finished with all of their Shabbos preparation by Chatzot on Friday, by midday. Now, of course, the other polar end of a 24-hour cycle is that just like you have midday, which is the height of the sun, you also have the flip side of the height of distance from the sun, right? Which is going to be exactly at the midpoint of halachic midnight. There are 2 different opinions halachically about how we calculate, whether we calculate as the exact midpoint or whether it's 6 actual clock hours after nightfall, or whether it's at the exact midpoint, which in the summertime, in the height of summer, also depending on the latitude you live at, is either going to be after midnight, or whether it's going to be the winter, where the nights are longer, and you're going to wind up with Chatzot Laila, a midpoint, an exact midpoint that's going to be before clock midnight. So there are 2 different basic ways of calculating Chatzot. Rebbe Nachman followed a particular approach, which actually Rabbi Yitzchok Breiter is going to mention clearly here, because he in the actual lessons in the Likutey Moharan, I don't believe Rebbe Nachman says which shita, which approach he takes halachically, but it is known among Breslover Hasidim which he followed, and so that means that in the summertime, according to the approach that Rabbi Nachman followed, there is no actual chatzot there are not enough hours after nightfall to be able to before dawn, because the nights are so short in the summertime in certain parts of Russia. And so it's not as though Breslov Hasidim didn't say the prayers of Chatzot. However, you didn't really have the full effect of Chatzot. And Breslov Hasidim would call the winter nights the golden Nacht, the golden nights. And I actually heard once a Breslov Chassid from the United States. He said he thought that it was called the golden nights because you could actually get a decent amount of sleep before you got up for Chatzot. So it was like a perfect night to have this very, very long night. You can get a decent amount of rest in before you get up if you've gone to sleep directly after nightfall, having said Shema once it's night. So you can actually get a good few hours of sleep and a decent night's sleep before getting up to do divine service in the night. And it's so funny because when I first heard the statement of the golden Nacht, those golden nights, so the emphasis was not on the fact that you got sleep, but that you had more time to do Avodat Hashem. So, I guess it all depends on how you're looking at it. But definitely, I can tell you just from my own experience, the main time that I have an opportunity to be in touch with Chatzot, aside from when I had nursing babies and I was up every night at some point, and so tried to take advantage of that, and to take advantage of those moments of being woken up by little babies to nurse and say a parak of Tehillim or something. So I should have the merit. No, I actually asked my teacher about that, and she said, "Listen, if you're getting up anyway to nurse a baby, you could say Al Noas Bavel. It's a good idea to have. You could have some connection to Chatzot." So I actually, and in terms of like for Kabbalistic reasons, the mother being woken up in the middle of the night to take care of the needs of her young children is you're really kind of acting out what happens with the Shekhinah coming down into the lower worlds in order to take care. It says the Shekhinah descends to the lower worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya in order to bring sustenance to her household. So that's called Vatitin Teref Levesa, Vatakam Baod Laila, Vatitin Teref Levesa V'chok L'Naraseha. Like it says in Eishes Chayil, she gets up in the middle of the night, while it's still night, and brings food, sustenance to her household, and the daily bread to her girls, to her daughters. It's an Eishes Chayil. So it's really a very deep idea. I mean, and you kind of play it out. Those years of taking care, I don't know, however, 13 years of my life I spent nursing babies. It's I didn't forget about this. So it has also its more simple way in which it can play itself out. If you get to go to the bathroom or something like that, I mean, you have gotten up. So, why not take advantage of the fact that you're already up? But let's just talk about, first of all, let's see. Chatzot is from the language of chatzaya, is to split something. And the practice of getting up for chatzot and saying special prayers over, lamenting over the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash and the continuation of the exile, is something that is not a Breslov practice. It is a Jewish practice. Open up the beginning of your Shulchan Aruch, open up the beginning of your Code of Jewish Law, and when the Shulchan Aruch says that it's better to say, actually it might be the Hagah, it might be among the glosses of the Ramah, I have to check, but better to say, I think it's actually the language of the Shulchan Aruch, better to say a little with kavanah than a lot without kavanah. Many people make the mistake of thinking that it's talking about the prayers of Shacharit. That's not true. It's talking about the additional prayers when you rise at midnight in order to lament over the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. So the midnight lament and the fact that Chatzot Laila is, let's think about, if we have 3 prayers of the day, Shacharit, Mincha, and Arvit, paralleling the 3 Avot, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, as it says in the Gemara and Brachot. So that means that the institution of thrice daily prayers is something that goes back very, very deep into it's not only a question of halakha, but it's family tradition. So 3 times a day, we check in with our Creator. We stop doing whatever else we're doing, and we renew ourselves and refresh ourselves at the mikveh of tefillah. We renew ourselves there. Now, we know that this idea of the 3, it's like 3 with the magical 4th, the mystical 4th, right? Just like you have 3 meals of Shabbos, and each one of them also parallels. The night meal, the first meal, the evening meal parallels Yitzchak, and the morning meal parallels Avraham. And the afternoon meal of Sudash Lashit parallels Yaakov. However, we also have what's called the Seudah Revi'it. We have also, in terms of the 3 festivals of the year, right? We have Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. So we have our also our Shalosh Regalim parallel the Shalosh Avot, and also we have a mysterious 4th regel, right? We have Shmini Atzeret. Now Shmini Atzeret is a 1 day, and it is parallel to the regel Revi'i b'Merkavah, the divine chariot, or the vehicle for the expression of divine of Hashem's presence in the world, has 3 main modes, and then the mysterious 4th one, and that's called the 4th leg of the divine vehicle, right? So we have 3, the Avot, and then we have the 4th, and the 4th is David, and the 4th meal of Shabbos, Milav Malka, is David's meal, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam, and the 4th, the magical, mysterious 4th of Tefillah, of prayer, is Chatzot. And anyone who's familiar with the first place in the Talmud where we talk about Chatzot, it's in the Gemara and Brachot right at the beginning. So David HaMelech said, Chatzot Laila akum laodot lach al mishpatei tzidkecha. I arise at midnight to thank you, Hashem, for your righteous statutes. And it says in the Talmud that David HaMelech had a harp that he would suspend above his bed, and at the exact moment of midnight, actual mystical midnight, not 12 o'clock on the clock, but whatever the actual mystical midnight is, at that exact moment, which only Hashem knows, a northern wind would blow across the strings of the harp. They would play a melody, and it would awaken him so that he could get up and study Torah. Chatzot laila akum lahodot lach amishpatzei tzidkecha. I arise at midnight, chatzot, mamash chatzot, at exact midnight, which only Hashem knows, and therefore he was sent. David HaMelech was sent a heavenly messenger, the northern wind, to awaken him so he would get up to learn. And he would be mitasek b'Torah, as it says in the Talmud. David HaMelech would learn Torah the whole night long until before the dawn. Before the dawn, he would begin to pray, and he would pray with the dawn. He would reach Shmona Esrei, which is we call this Tefillah Kevatikin, and we'll get there in its time, Bezrat Hashem. But the beginning of the day, really, even though halachically the new day starts from nightfall of the night before, spiritually the new day is already beginning from Chatzot. Chatzot is the time of the night. That's the idea of breaking something in half, right? Of halving it. Is that we say the first half of the night are the first half of the night is very much beset by what are called harsh dinim, difficult, harsh judgments. And once we get past the point of midnight, it says there's a chut shel chesed. It's actually where Arush got his name for his yeshiva. Chut shel chesed nimshach alav kol yom. That when a person gets up in the middle of the night, studies Torah, prays, says the special prayers, and then starts the day the way one should. So this is something that draws a stream of chesed, of divine love and kindness upon him for the rest of the day. Now, anybody who's ever engaged in this practice knows what a difference it makes. And anybody, for those of you who've come with me to Uman, you know that if that's the only time you've ever gotten up for Chatzot and been up for Vatikin, and it's like it's a very, very special avodah. There's no question. Now, for me, I was going to say about summer and winter, right? Like when I take groups to Uman and I have night after night, I'm getting up for Chatzot, and not only getting up for Chatzot, but like we have Shir Shirim and we have Tehillim and we have all kinds of things that we do. A little bit of Tikkun Chatzot, just lezecher. Those summer trips are so difficult because I can get maybe I'm able to get like an hour of sleep between maybe 2 hours of sleep before having to get up, and then I go straight through. And in the winter trips, like there is something to it, being able to get a little bit more rest before you get up again, and you're ready to put in energy in Avodat Hashem. Now, the question of whether this avodah is for women. So we have 3 different approaches about Chatzot and women. The first is nothing to do with women. Getting up for Chatzot has nothing to do with women, and therefore it's not an avodah that you have to do. And this is similar. There are like, according to that result, there's any number of avodot that have nothing to do with women. And in terms of and he means like in terms of the rectification of the soul, it's not something that requires. You are not required to do such a thing. Now, but that's only one approach. The second approach, like in the Kaf HaChaim, it's not only an Ashkenazic Sephardic thing. So let's say the Ben Ish Chai. So the Ben Ish Chai says that women don't have the practice of saying Tikkun Chatzot, and that's actually from the teachings of the Arizal. Not your Tikkun, not something that you need to do. However, he does say something very interesting. He says, however, Po Be'ir Kotshenu Baghdad, he was the Rav of Baghdad and all Iraqi Jewry, and by extension of Rabban Shel Kol Yisrael, or Lefachot B'nai Sfarad, such an influential halachic authority and hashkafic authority for not only Sephardic Jewry but actually for everybody. Even though Ashkenazim don't always go according to his opinions halachically. For those of you who know me, I'm a very, very big fan of the Ben Ish Chai. Like to teach, like to learn from the Ben Ish Chai a great deal. It gives very deep insight into mitzvot. So even if the halachic practice is not exactly parallel, he's still invaluable. So what he says is, Po Be'ir Kotshenu Baghdad, here in the holy city of Baghdad, the righteous women have a practice of getting up in the middle of the night to do their housework, as it says in the pasuk. As it says in Eishes Chayil, she gets up while it is still night, and she provides for her household and gives bread to her daughters. And he is alluding to the fact that, like I said, that, the concept of the Shekhinah, and the wife is the ambassador of the Shekhinah in the home, that she gets up at night and she attends to the needs of her household. The descent of the Shekhinah down into the lower worlds is something that can be enacted in a very simple way, even if it's called doing laundry, putting up porridge, making bread. So the Ben Ish Chai, even though he says women don't say the prayers of Chatzot, he does attest to the fact that in his time, in his place, the righteous women of Baghdad to get up to carry out this spiritual precept. Now, does that mean that you should turn your life upside down to do this practice? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. Talk to your husband. Consult with your conscience. I don't know. But it's certainly something that it is definitely a very powerful pathway of avoda. Now, so Ben Ish Chai. Then we have those who say no. Then we have those who say, like, neutral, right? You can, and you don't say the tefillot, but there is some kind of an inyan. There is some sort of something valuable in the practice, however it's carried out. And then you have another Sephardic source. I'm staying only in the Sephardic sources because, for the most part, it's only Kabbalistic. The Kabbalistic halachic sources are the Sephardic ones, for the most part. Although later on we do have Hasidic sources that also are in the realm of halacha and also Kabbalah. But the Sephardic halachic sources tend to be a little bit more open about it, and also are more relied upon. So another very, very, like we'll say, like it's pretty much the Mishnah Berurah for Sephardim. It's called a sefer called the Kaf HaChaim, book called the Kaf HaChaim. Now the Kaf HaChaim, he's very interesting. He says even though women have no obligation, he actually uses the language of a woman who does this, tavo aleha bracha, that she's certainly blessed, meaning he supports it even if it's not something. No one says that women are obligated. Nobody. Okay. So having said all of this, I have to say that a lot of women, I'm going to put it from the wifely side of things. Like all the years that I was, raising children and all these years that I've been married, so I didn't see it as my obligation to get up for Chatzot, but I definitely saw it as my obligation to facilitate my husband's ability to get up for Chatzot, and he was very committed to this. And this is really something that a husband cannot do if he doesn't have his wife's cooperation. It's like working a night shift, That's actually what it is. So, if your wife doesn't agree for you to go work the night shift, you're not going to work the night shift, unless you're doing it by fiat or something like coercively. But let's just say that we like to be more diplomatic about things. So getting women on board to help facilitate the going out for Chatzot. Do we get up and stay up? Okay, so there's any number of possibilities. Some people will get up and say the prayers of Chatzot, maybe learn a little bit, do Hitbodedut, and then go back to sleep. Some people will get up and stay up. There's not a hard and fast rule about how to do it. There's definitely an ideal way to do it. Just like there's in most things, there's the ideal way to do things. David HaMelech got up at Chatzot, learned, prayed, then prepared himself for Tefillah Kevatikin, and then prayed with the dawn. And this is I don't want to say authentic, but we'll say this is like the most original Jewish practice that we have. In terms of an ideal Jewish schedule in the time of in the time of Chazal, in the time of the Talmudic times, and Mishnaic times, and so on. So this was the way that our holy people lived. And what's interesting is that it fell so out of use. Most people, if you pray with an art scroll sitter, let's say, if you look at the beginning of your art scroll sitter, you're not going to see Tfilat Chatzot. I don't think that you'll have it there. And it's only if you use an older sitter that hasn't been altered over the last 150 years or so in terms of its layout. So maybe even 100 years. So newer Sidurim, a lot of them just took it out. And the fact that it's taken out was just a reflection of the fact that most regular Jews stopped doing this practice. But I honestly, and even very simple people, it's much more common among Sephardim, know how important Chatzot is. I mean, it's a relatively recent phenomenon that in the Sephardic world that there aren't more people getting up for chatzot. That's fairly recent. In the older generation, even regular people, working people, knew this was something. My husband, all these years, has always had a chatzot kollel, almost always. Meaning a setup where he would go out and learn in a Beit Midrash where there's other guys getting up and learning together from midnight or 1 a.m, whatever time they've designated. And if he hasn't been among Breslover Hasidim, if it wasn't a Breslov kollel, so almost always it's been Sephardic kollelim. And he's very happy to learn in the Sephardic kollel. Kollel Chatzot is going to be populated for the most part by Sephardim and by Breslovers, because Breslovers among Chasidim tend to be, among Ashkenazim Chasidim, are among the few who still hold it to be a very important practice. Now, Rebbe Nachman of Breslov would say that he was very happy that we never had, it's a hard thing to say, but he said, we never had another Rebbe after Rebbe Nachman. And so, actually, it's in Likutey Tefillot, he says this, it's very powerful. He says, with other Chassiduyot, in other Hasidic groups, you had a Rebbe, and every generation, whatever was happening, there was a Rebbe who was a reflection and a light into that particular generation. So when he saw that Hasidim weren't holding by doing a particular practice that had been done earlier, so he said, Nishtanu ativim, or the Dorot nechlashu, that now later generations, people are weaker, they're not capable of doing this avodah, so it got taken off the table. And Rebbe Nachman says, we never had another Rebbe. So Rebbe Nachman 200 years ago said, Chatzot is an important practice. Even if people are not holding by it, even if it's really difficult for them, every Breslover knows, even if he's not getting up, he ought to be getting up, and he has some degree of aspiration to do so. Now, even if he's not doing it, right? So it's sort of like it never got taken off the table for your average Breslover Chassid, because we didn't have another Rebbe to come and say, this is not an avoda for you to do, it's only for tzaddikim. So it sort of stayed in every man's avoda, in every man's avoda for Breslover Hasidim, and even if not everybody is doing it, everybody knows that it's important to do it. Now, I want to go into the lesson. And, okay, so if you're not familiar with the prayers of Chatzot, first of all, if this at all speaks to you, this practice, Breslov Research Institute put out a beautiful book years ago. Avram Greenbaum put it together, called The Sweetest Hour. First, before I ever got married, before I met my husband, I had nothing to do with Breslov. I remember going to a Jewish bookstore in Queens, I think it was. And I was always trolling for new books. I was always interested in new stuff. And I saw a book called The Sweetest Hour. I was like, what is this? So I took it out and I started thumbing through. I was like, this looks so beautiful. I probably saw the translation of the piyutim also in the back, the special prayers for Chatzot. Something spoke to me. So I took the book home, and my second year in seminary, when I was living in Cleveland, I started to get up for Chatzot. I had nothing to do with Breslov, but the book spoke to me so deeply. And the practice that I developed was I would get up at 3. That worked for me. If I got to sleep by 9, I would get up at 3. And then I had time. I would get up, I would say Tehillim, I would say Tefillot from the book, and I would learn for school, and then I would pray nice and early. And sometimes if I was very tired, I would lie down a little bit before school. And that's what I did. It was very, I didn't even think of it as being a Breslov thing to do. I had just seen this book and it really spoke to me. And I kind of forgot about it actually until years later. I said, wow, it's really amazing. I was doing that in my second year in seminary. I didn't even have any real association with Rebbe Nachman's teachings. It really spoke to me. So that's just, a little piece about me. So if you see that book, or you can check out online or something, the book is beautiful, and I loved it very much. It really spoke to me. Now, Chatzot Laila. So let's read the text of Rabbi Yitzchok Breiter's mini synopsis, and then we're going to go to some of the material that he's basing this on. Right. Yeah. Kim said that's how the shidduch came about. Yeah, I was already doing certain things that I didn't realize, where they were coming from. And I was also singing all the time the Breslov Nigunim. The Breslov Nigunim were very important for me. I had discovered them also before my second year, between my first and second year in seminary, and I fell in love with them totally. Okay, Chatzot Laila. Yakum, here we're up here by the hay. Chatzot Laila, Yakum v'yitaber me'od al churban Beit HaMikdash. A person should get up and mourn very much over the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Val ha'alamat or ha'tzaddik ha'emet. And he associates this because that's the lesson that I'm going to refer you to, lesson 67 of the second part of Likutey Moran. We see a correlation between the light of the Tzaddik and the light of the Mikdash. So the prayers of Chatzot are really a lament over the loss of the Beit HaMikdash and also the loss of, or the obscuring of, the light of the Tzaddik. I have plenty to cry over, which is not only that the world is a very broken place, and not only that the Jewish people are very broken people, but that I am a very broken person because I have a lot that needs to be fixed, and sometimes I just don't know what to do with myself. I have all of these. I have all of this big, like package of sins and bad midot and ta'avot, illegitimate desires and so on, that are actively obstructing the building of the Beit HaMikdash. And so he's not trying to guilt you. He's quoting pretty much directly from that lesson 67. But what he's getting at is that a kind of accountability. Chatzot is a time when we take spiritual accountability. I want to tell you a story about it in just a minute. We'll finish till the end of this paragraph. And I want to tell you a story about a friend of ours. Now, of course, he's going to address, he does this very beautifully and elegantly. He just, speaks about the why, and then he says the how, right? It means you open up this prayer of Chatzot, and sometimes it feels a little bit like, well, it might feel a little bit distant from me. Most of it is Tehillim. Some of it is liturgical poetry, which is very beautiful. But, if a person doesn't have the right attitude and perspective on the prayers, it sort of might seem very far away, right? And but he says you have to be careful, and he's using another lesson from the Likutey Moran to redirect us. He says you have to find yourself in all that you're going through in your saying of Tikkun Chatzot. That language of Yimtzat Atzmo B'chol Ma Shavo Over Alav, that's actually Rebbe Nachman's own language. To discover yourself inside of the language, and Rebbe Nachman speaks about in terms of Tehillim as a whole. And I think I might have, in some other course, might have spoken about this and seen the actual lesson inside, but it's a very contemporary kind of language to use. You should find yourself or see yourself in the words. But that's actually the avoda of making use of the Siddur or the Tehillim or any printed prayer, is that you can't just say it because someone else wrote it. You say it and it becomes a kind of garment for the state that you're in. It's just a means of expressing the state that you're in. But if you're not attentive to your own state, then the words can't really express all that much. They only express as much as you invest or discover of yourself in those words. And so that's really what the avoda is, to actually have those words speak the truth of you. And he is assuming that they certainly can, and they do. Because there's no person who doesn't suffer. There's no person who is complete. And so we all have what to cry over at midnight. Vivakesh me'Hashem Yitbarach geulot v'yishuat kol Yisrael. And at that moment, it's particularly auspicious to ask Hashem to bring the redemption and the salvation of all the Jewish people. V'gam geulat nafsho me'Yetzer Hara. And of course, the parallel to that is I'm begging Hashem to redeem me from the entrapment to my lower nature that I'm stuck in. Ha'orev lo tamid, like as soon as I wake up in the morning, from the instant I wake up, and even while I'm sleeping, my Yetzer is with me, in me, and working on me, and so I am ever conscious of this. And Chatzot is my time to really pour my heart out before Hashem, because I have the quiet opportunity to confront the places in myself that are very much broken. Zman Chatzot matchil tamid min 6 sha'ot achar yitziat hakochavim. Here, Rabbi Yitzchok Breiter is reminding us Rebbe Nachman's approach to the actual timing of Chatzot is a full 6 hours after Tzeit. V'nimshach zmano 2 sha'ot, and its most auspicious and focused time of its power is 2 hours, the immediate 2 hours after what we call Nekudat Chatzot, the actual point of Chatzot, of actual midnight. Now, I have a couple of stories I want to share with you. The first one is an old story that actually goes back a long time to a Breslover Chassid who lived quite a long time ago. His name was Rav Mendel Litvak. Now, no, not Mendel Litvak. Sorry. His name was Nachum Schuster. Mendel Litvak was someone else. Now, Nachum Schuster was an Umner Chassid. He was a Chassid in Uman who was probably about 2 generations after Reb Nosson. And he was in Uman, there were 3 classes of Breslover Hasidim. There were, we call them the Ovdim, the Balabatim, and the Pshutim. You had the people who were simple people, we'll start with the Pshutim. Simple people who worked very simple jobs, but to the extent that it was possible for them to carry out they were very sincere in their desire to carry out Rebbe Nachman's advice and his path, and so they incorporated into their very simple lives in whatever way they could. And they were very, like, from the outsider's perspective, to us they would have seemed like quite big tzaddikim, but in their own milieu, they were we call them pshutim batzman. They were very, very simple among themselves, and they were not big scholars, and they also, because they were poor, they didn't have much time to spend in Avodat Hashem, but they did whatever they could. And so the Rebbe said to learn a certain amount of Mishnayos every day, they did. The Rebbe said to learn a good amount of Talmud every day, they did what they could. The Rebbe said get up for Chatzot, they did that. The Rebbe said an hour is Hitbodedut a day, they did that. Like, they followed this, basically, this Seder Yom, even though they were very simple working men, not big scholars. And then we had the Balabatim, and those were the few people who were a little bit more wealthy, relatively speaking. And so they had businesses, and they had perhaps a little bit more time to devote to Torah study. But they were also, in terms of the carrying out of Rebbe Nachman's Eitzot, they were pretty much on the same page with the Pshutim. And then you had the Oivdim. They were called the Oivdim. Now, Oivdim were people who did nothing but Avodat Hashem, and in Uman they tended to be the poorest of the poor. And they lived exceedingly simple lives, quite a lot of deprivation, and all they did was Torah and Avodah. That's it. And they lived on miracles. And so, and they were the Ovdim. And this kind of survivors, or the remnants of original Breslover Hasidim who came and settled in Eretz Yisrael, either after the war, some of them before the war, a little bit later some of them came, but very few people survived the war. So, they carried over that tradition of the Ovdim. They brought it over with them to Eretz Yisrael. And so that took some root here. And in the last 2 generations, there were some prime examples of Umner Hasidim, Breslover Hasidim, who kind of restarted the pathway of Avodah in Yerushalayim and in other places, and kind of transplanted Breslover Hasidus. So that's a whole saga in and of itself. Now, so Nachum Schuster was a very simple Breslover Hasid, which means he was not simple because he was a person who was a working man. He was a shoemaker. Schuster means shoemaker. He was a cobbler, and so he was a very simple working man, quite poor. And but he tried to he held to Rebbe Nachman's pathway, like pretty much, following this Seder Yom. So we look at it and we say, anybody who does all of this every day, like he's a tzaddik, and the answer is, yeah, he was a tzaddik pashut, like that's what it means, to be a genuine Breslover Chassid, halavai aleinu, to follow Rebbe Nachman's Eitzot. You'd be a pretty good person, just, it's a pretty good level, without spending all your days and all your nights in avodah, just doing what the Rebbe said to do, like for a regular Jew. So, anyway, so he once had to travel. He came to a town who was known for having many, many scholars in the town, and so he had to stay. He had to stay overnight there, and so he went to wherever he was when he came into town during the day. He went to wherever his lodgings were, or whoever he was staying with, and put down his bag. And then when it came to be Chatzot Laila, so people didn't heat their homes and start up the stove or something. What you did was you went to the Beit Midrash, and in a big town, you ought to have a Beit Midrash that has the stove running all night, and somebody should be learning throughout the night in a decent sized community. Somebody ought to be in a Beit Midrash throughout the night. And so he picked himself up, and Kam Chatzot, he walked into the Beit Midrash, the town synagogue. He walked into the Beit Midrash, And of course, the great scholars of the town, there was a town known for scholars. I think he actually was in Broad. It's like a really, powerhouse. So he, I might be wrong, but I think my memory is that it was Broad. Anyway, so he walked in, and like all of the big Talmidei Chachamim of the city were there learning at Chatzot Laila. Because the Rambam says anybody who wants to have the inner melody of Torah has to learn from Chatzot Laila. So the town's big scholars would come together and they would learn in the night, and then they would pray, Vatikin, not because they were Breslovers, because that was the practice among great people. It's just that simple people didn't usually do stuff like that. So anyway, he walks in, he's a humble workman. He doesn't sit down and open a Gemara. What he does is he goes over to the stove, to the pot-bellied stove, and does, which is the halachic practice of saying Tikkun Chatzot. He opened the stove, and he swipes out a little bit of ash from inside the stove, and he puts it here, which is, that's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. He put it in the place of tefillin. You put afer. You have to put ashes in the place of afer, in the place of the tefillin. And you sit on the floor. You take off your shoes, and you sit on the floor, and you cry, and you say Tikkun Chatzot. That's what you do. So that's what he did, like he always did at home. He's at the floor, and he just started to bawl over the tefillah. He's just crying. And he has ashes on his head, just like it says, shoes off. All of the chachamim, the big chachamim at the tables and in the Beit Midrash, they start to laugh at him. And they say, look at this tzaddik, he's such a, they think he's crazy because he's obviously a simple person, he's not scholarly. And he's doing an avodah, he's doing a type of spiritual work of lamenting and mourning over the Beit HaMikdash that in their place, only big tzaddikim do, They start to laugh at him. Who thinks he's a tzaddik, and, making fun of him. So he finishes. They don't really know what to make of him. He just sits there, and he's doing what he's supposed to do. He finishes the tefillot, and he gets up and he says, but with a lot of sincerity, not trying to shtach anybody. He's not trying to fight with anybody. He said it with total sincerity. He says, I can understand if people like you are such great scholars, you're such great scholars, so that the Talmud says if someone has da'at, if you have knowledge of Hashem, then it's as if the Beit HaMikdash has already been built. So you must be very big scholars that already the Beit HaMikdash is built. But I'm not a scholar. And so I feel the pain of the loss of the Beit HaMikdash. So what can I do but cry? Now, you can understand that if he had meant to give it to them, they would have fought with him. But he said it with such simplicity and such sincerity, they were all very ashamed. You can understand why. In any case, Nachum Schuster. So, Avodat Chatzot. Now, why does Rebbe Nachman make a correlation between the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash and the obscuring of the light of the Tzaddik? So that comes straight out of lesson 67, which we're going to go look at now. In addition, what's the other question? Well, I think that's where we can be for right now. So let's go over, because we don't have endless amounts of time. And this is lesson 67. Now, lesson 67, just to have an idea of what the context was. Here. There are those who say that this lesson was taught. Rebbe Nachman, there's two different versions of what happened here. But the Shabbos that this lesson was taught, it was Parshas. Here. It's Bereshis Leinei Kol Yisrael. Now that's traditionally, we know that this was, right? Chibur Haschas HaSefer HaTorah B'Sofa. Bereshis Leinei Kol Yisrael. Bereshis is the first word of the Torah. Leinei Kol Yisrael is the final phrase of the Torah. And this was taught Shabbos Bereshis, which means that it was the closure of Sukkot and Simchas Torah and the beginning of starting a new cycle. Now, for anybody who's familiar with Yorzeiten, so Rav Levi Yitzchok Breiter passed away the year before Rebbe Nachman passed away. Rav Levi Yitzchok, just under a year. Rav Levi Yitzchok Breiter passed away on the 25th of Kislev, if I'm not making a mistake, 25th of Tishrei. And Rabbi Nachman passed away the following year, not in Tavkuf, but in Tavkuf, not in Tavkuf Ayin, but in Tavkuf Ayin Aleph, the following Sukkot on the 18th of Tishrei. So they're just under a year apart in the time that they were taken away from us. Now, that Shabbos, so the 25th of Tishrei, the news from Berdichev hadn't yet come to Uman, to Breslov, that Rav Levi Yitzchak had already passed away. Now, some people say this lesson is referring to Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. Some people say that it was 1809, Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. 1810 was Rebbe Nachman, very beginning of the year. So the some people say that the Tzaddik that Rabbi Nachman was referring to here was not Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, but Rav Gedalia of Linitz, who also passed away around the same time. So we can't know for sure because he didn't say, he was only alluding. However, it could be this one or the other one. Now, it makes a lot of sense that it would be that he's referring specifically to the passing of Rav Levi Yitzchak. Now, when he gave over the lesson, the news hadn't yet reached Breslov that Rav Levi Yitzchak passed away. Let's assume it's Rav Levi Yitzchak. Rav Gedalia of Linitz was also lost around that time. However, the big difference is that he keeps on calling in this lesson the Tzaddik. He calls him the Pe'er Shel Yisrael. Pe'er Shel Yisrael, and that was something that was a nickname, even though Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev was known as Sanigoron Shel Yisrael, the advocate on behalf of the Jewish people. Nevertheless, Pe'er Shel Yisrael means like the tefillin of the Jewish people. And the tefillin of the Jewish people, in our tefillin it says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, right? Is in our tefillin we attest to the uniqueness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in the Gemara in Brachas it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu also is tefillin, and what's in his tefillin? In his tefillin it says Mika Amcha Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz. He attests, he has a constant reminder before him, so to speak, that's called tefillin, he attests to the uniqueness of the Jewish people, right? We attest to his uniqueness. Pe'ero, like we say on Shabbos, you know that beautiful piyut, Pe'ero alai u'pe'eri alav, v'karov elai b'korei elav. That's in Shir HaYichud that we say after we finish the tefillah. Pe'ero alai, his pe'er is upon me. Pe'eri alav, and my pe'er is upon him. That's a reference, that's a veiled reference to the fact that my tefillin speak about his uniqueness, his tefillin, kavichol, speak about our uniqueness. So Pe'er Shel Yisrael, to call the Rav Levi Yitzchak Pe'er Shel Yisrael, is also fitting, because if anybody knows about the nature of Rav Levi Yitzchak, he was always advocating on high, speaking about the unique beauty of the Jewish people and the Pe'er of the Jewish people, and so that fits. Now, the message hadn't yet come that either Rav Levi Yitzchak or Rav Gedalia of Linitz had passed away, and so when Rebbe Nachman gave over this lesson, he talks about the loss of the Tzaddik, and the light of the Tzaddik is gone, and so everyone understood that he must be talking about the loss of somebody, but they didn't know who he's talking about. It was only after Shabbos was over that the news came from Berdichev or Linitz. It's very not clear, but most would agree that it's talking about Berdichev. That shluchim came, emissaries came, and told the community that which Rabbi Nachman had been alluding to through Ruach HaKodesh in the lesson on Shabbos, that the Pe'er and Shel Yisrael had been lost. The glory of the Jewish people had been lost. Now, the point that I want to talk about here about the lesson is he talks first about the Tzaddik, and he talks about the loss of the Tzaddik, and how our eyes are blinded, and how it's like the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash and all the smoke gets in your eyes, and so on. And we have many different, the lesson is quite complex, but he speaks at length about the destruction of both the Beit HaMikdash, which is the place where Hashem's glory is revealed, and the Tzaddik, upon whom the Jewish people's and Hashem's glory is revealed. And so he in the second page of this lesson, he says, V'hinei, ma she'avar ayin, that which is done is done, that which is past is past. Ki kvar nisraf Beit Mikdashenu, the Beit HaMikdash has already been destroyed. Ach ka'et, however, now, meaning, what do you do now? It's already, what's done is done. Ach ka'et, However, now Hashem Yitbarach mitzapeh lashuv eleinu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting to return to us. Lachzor livnot mikdashenu, and He wants so much to come back and to rebuild our Beit HaMikdash for us. At the very least, we should not stand in the way of HaKadosh Baruch Hu rebuilding the Beit HaMikdash. Rather, we should focus all of our energies on rebuilding it. Okay. Therefore, it is extremely important to try and get up for Chatzot, to actively mourn over the destruction of Beit HaMikdash. Key. Why? Why is it your responsibility? Why should you have to do it? Maybe in an earlier reincarnation, you were there and you were responsible for the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. But feeling in love, maybe your particular soul spark was not there. So what then? Maybe there are things that you're doing now that are currently preventing the Beit HaMikdash from being rebuilt. So meaning either you're part of the cause or you're not being part of the solution. If I'm not actively contributing to its rebuilding, then I'm also considered responsible for destroying it. Okay. So we can see Rebbe Nachman here is making the emphasis, right, that this is something really everybody's got a piece of. Everybody's got a part in. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised that anybody who really genuinely mourns the loss of Tzion, He promised those who mourn over Tzion, as it says in Yeshayahu, to give us glory instead of ashes. Efer, ashes, and Pe'er are the same letters, just in inversion. And here, the practice of putting the ashes is a sign of mourning on the place of the tefillin. So we say, Samti Pe'er tachat Efer. You'll get your Pe'er, your glory, which means both the Tzaddik and the Beit HaMikdash itself, back, rather than the ashes of mourning. Pe'er tachat Efer. Okay. I think that's enough for that. Now, let's go back. I hope everybody was able to follow that one. Let's see. Back to the Seder Yom. Okay, so that's lesson 67. Now, where are we? Okay. So I was going to tell you another story. Now, for those of you who are familiar with politics, Israeli politics, I'm not a politic person, but I just something that, for 15 years, I mean, here we are in the neighborhood, like I'm very close to Kippur Shabbos, although I used to notice it more when we lived at the end of Mea Shearim. In any case, every year, this is customary in Israel going back already many, many decades. Every year on Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron, journalists come with cameras and video cameras to Kippur Shabbos to yet again film Haredim not stopping for the siren, which sounds in recognition of the loss of those who were murdered in the Holocaust and those who have died in Israel's wars. Now, and this is always it's always the broadcast, it's always like the provocation and get people upset, etc., without any explanation as to why it would be that people don't necessarily stop for the siren. It just looks extremely disrespectful. And I'm not going to get into whether it's a good idea, a bad idea, or what you're supposed to do about it. Okay? I'm not going there. I will say, though, that we have an old friend who, and they always try and stop someone to ask them, why aren't you stopping for the siren, showing respect? So we have a friend who was once crossing Kippur Shabbos while the siren was going off, like everybody else in the neighborhood, or almost everybody in the neighborhood, at least in those years. I'm not sure what's going on now. And he was stopped by a journalist, and the woman had a camera crew there, and she stopped him, just stopped him in the middle of the street. She said, "Why aren't you stopping? Don't you know that this offends people?" And he said, I think it must have been Yom HaShoah. And he said, listen to me. I get up every night for the last 20 years, I have gotten up every night, during every night of the year, Shabbos, Yom Tov, and Chol HaMoed, festivals, tired, not tired. I get up every night, sit on the floor, and mourn over, well, actually, you don't sit on the floor. Certain days you don't, but we'll say you have different adaptations because of certain days the mourning is a little bit less. But in any case, he says, I get up every night and I say extensive prayers for the loss of every single Jew and the fact that we're still in exile. I do this every night. I get up at midnight. I do this every night. It takes me an hour every night of my life. Do you think that I don't appreciate the losses that the Jewish people have suffered? No, I'm pretty sure that it didn't go on TV. I just remember him. We asked him, like, what she say to that? They were like, the whole camera crew and this woman were just looking at me like, huh? What can we say? Hey. Now, so, women and chatzot, another point. So over the years, sometimes my husband, he'll say, wow, I feel so bad for so-and-so, my chavrusa so-and-so, like his wife is not letting him come out for chatzot anymore. Or she's giving him a hard time about chatzot. And honestly, from my own perspective, I never really understood it. I just never really understood what the big deal is. But I guess that's just me. Maybe if you've done the avoda, you understand how important it is. Maybe that's what it's about. I don't know. But I'll call Panim. Let's see. What else can I tell you? I don't really want to start Zichron Ba'alma Da'ati, so I think we're going to stop, even though it's a few minutes under, because I don't want to start a whole new subject that we're not really ready for. So we'll put it off till next time, I think. Does anybody have any questions? You have a couple of minutes. If you have a question, now's the perfect time. I'm usually running away. I'm not running away now. No questions. Wow. Oh, when's my next Uman trip? I think it's going to be either after Lag BaOmer or after Shavuos. I don't know. It's very hard for me to commit. My father's not well, so this is not pashut. He would say just, don't work around me. Just do what you need to do. But I don't know. It's sort of committing to something, and then it's often complicated. Shemi Azor, what do you want me to send you? Send a copy of the text. Did anybody try and Google it? A Day in the Life of a Breslover Chassid? I think that you should be able to. Maybe let me find it right now, and I'll put up a link. It should be here. 1 second. Here we go. Here we go. Is it here? There we go. No. This is what it, if you wanted to buy it, but you shouldn't really have to buy it. It's so very, I think this is it. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Look at this. Easy Yofi. Yes, they put it online. Here, let me put up the link. It's in 3 parts. Okay, so you follow the links. Oh, I'm so happy. Here you go. So here, I'm going to put it down below. Wait, how can I? Here's my message. And there you go. How come I can't put this in? I can't, for some reason it's not okay. Go to Day in the Life of a Breslover Chassid, breslov.org, and you're going to find it online. My father's name is Eliezer Ben Sarah. If you have the English book, great, but it's online now. It's in 3 parts. You should be able to find it online. For some reason, I can't paste into, I don't know why, but I don't seem to be able to paste into, let's see, into this little text box. Ah, it didn't go in as a link? Interesting. Huh. Okay. No, it's not allowing it. Okay, so just do it. Just check it out online. You'll find it. It's not hard to find. A day in the life of a Breslover Chassid, or just say a Breslover. Breslov.org, which is BRI, Breslov Research Institute. They're hosting it, and it's in 3 parts. Ah, there you go. Must be there. Yofi. I don't know why I couldn't get a link in. Okay, everyone should have a beautiful, beautiful week and a wonderful Chodesh. Misha Nichnas Adar Marbim Simcha, and we have 2 others this year, so even better, you get to rejoice for 2 months, and then we go straight into, and then we'll be ready for Pesach, B'ez Hashem. Okay, have a beautiful, beautiful week.